Hello everyone and welcome to another video. My name is Carolina and I am very excited because today we have a very important, crucial, basic topic to cover. The Bitcoin white paper is the ABC of the crypto blockchain Bitcoin space, okay? It is what is going to give you the perspective that you need to compare Bitcoin with other blockchains, and secondly, to analyze how the market is going to continue evolving through the years. Most people have a very limiting understanding about how Bitcoin works. They think that a blockchain is the only element behind Bitcoin to achieve decentralization. And that is, as I said before, a very limiting understanding. I would like to highlight the following 4 elements or technologies for you to know that are crucial to achieve that decentralization. Number 1, a consensus mechanism. Number 2, public key cryptography. Number 3, a decentralized algorithm such as proof of work. And number 4, a blockchain. It is the how we save the information. It is the how we save the transactions in the blockchain that makes the system unique and decentralized, okay? Those are very important messages for you to keep in mind, and you're going to learn many different concepts through these following videos so that you have the maximum understanding and perspective about how Bitcoin works. My name is Carolina. As I said before, I am very excited and I hope you are ready and excited too. Get ready to take notes and let's go. So before we start reading and analyzing the Bitcoin white paper, I don't know if you are new in the Bitcoin space, in the blockchain space, in the crypto space, but you need to understand what Bitcoin is. And there are many different ways to understand and describing what Bitcoin is. But I would like to highlight the following 2. Number 1, it is the system itself. It is a system based on computers, based on nodes that are constantly communicating each other about what is the valid situation and valid truth in the system, okay? So that is one way of describing what Bitcoin is. And the second way of understanding or describing what Bitcoin is that Bitcoin is the cryptocurrency. It is the coin itself as well. Okay, so whenever you hear someone talking about Bitcoin, she could be referring to either the system itself or the cryptocurrency. Okay, here we go. To download the Bitcoin white paper is super easy. You just go to Google and type Bitcoin white paper English or just Bitcoin white paper, and you should be able to find it very easily. All right, so here we go. We're going to start reading it and analyzing and understanding different types of concepts. Before we do so, the Bitcoin white paper was published by Satoshi Nakamoto. It could be a person and a group of people. We don't know the identity of this person, again, or group of people who published the Bitcoin white paper on October 2008, exactly when the economic crisis was happening in the United States. We don't know actually if this was just coincidence or if he did it by purpose, but actually with the Bitcoin white paper, with the creation of Bitcoin, Satoshi is actually providing or suggesting a solution for the following 2 problems. Problem number 1, the centralization of power and the need of an intermediary whenever we want to transfer monetary value. And secondly, the double spending problem, which is huge. Whenever we do something on the internet, that information or that action that we make is can be duplicated and can be copied, for example. In Bitcoin, this is impossible. Whenever we want to transfer Bitcoin, whenever we make a transaction in Bitcoin, that exact transaction cannot be made twice. And that is very big for humanity when it comes to money, okay? And the other thing that I wanted to mention before we start reading the white paper is that Satoshi did not invent everything that we're going to see up next. He actually took many different contributions that a lot of people had provided to humanity in the past, and he put them all together to create the Bitcoin white paper. Actually, 2 of the people who were mentioned in the Bitcoin white paper, I have had the honor of interviewing them, and you can find those interviews on my YouTube channel, Tech with Carolina. And those two people that I have had the pleasure to meet before are Adam Back and Scott Stornetta. Very well. We're going to start reading the abstract, the first paragraph that summarizes pretty much everything that is included in this paper, and it includes many different concepts that I want you to start understanding right now and that I want you to continue studying in the future as well. Okay, so Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, the abstract. A purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution. Satoshi is describing here the solution for the problem that I mentioned before, the solution to the problem of the need of an intermediary or a financial institution whenever humans want to transfer monetary value. Okay, so he's suggesting a system that would allow for people to do that, transfer money without the need of a financial institution. And here comes the first concept that I want you to understand. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent the double spending. Okay, so here he's already talking about the double spending. Digital signatures. What is a digital signature? Whenever me, Catalina, whenever I want to transfer Bitcoin to someone else, I need to create a digital signature. Why? Because we know that the system of Bitcoin is based on nodes, and those nodes are computers that are constantly communicating through a protocol, okay? And the transactions that we make in the system are also messages of that protocol that they use to communicate to each other, okay? So that message has to be signed, that transaction slash message has to be signed by me whenever I want to make a transaction. And I'm going to sign the message with my private keys. And the private keys are like the password that you have. It is like, yeah, the password that you have in order to access your Bitcoin, okay? Digital signatures allowed the rest of the network to know that I am the authentic owner of the money that I am transferring to another person, okay? So, and this also means that this transaction cannot be made twice. This is made to prevent the double spending because I am the only one who is able to sign the transaction, and the transaction is going to have a unique fingerprint, a unique identity as well, all right? So this is the first concept that I want you to understand. We propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer network, okay? The network timestamps a transaction by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that cannot be changed without redoing the proof of work. This is amazing, and here Satoshi is introducing many more concepts that we're going to analyze next. So, to understand what I have just read to you, we need to say again and remind you of the 4 elements that I mentioned to you at the very beginning of this video. I mentioned 4 key elements that are key and crucial to achieve the decentralization in the Bitcoin system. Concept number 1 is the consensus mechanism. Concept number 2 is the public key cryptography. 3, a decentralized algorithm such as proof of work. And 4 is a blockchain, okay? So whenever Satoshi is proposing these, he is talking about the following. He's talking about hashing, what a hash is, and he's talking about proof of work. And I'm going to explain to you what this means right now. Okay, so what is a hash? The same way we humans use a fingerprint to summarize the identity of a human being, we are going to use a hash to summarize information, okay? And a hash it has the following characteristics. A hash is unique. Okay, so if I have certain amount of information and I make a hash out of it, that means that that information is going to have a unique fingerprint, a unique hash. All right, and in Bitcoin, we use hash for many different things. We use a hash for a transaction, we use a hash for a block, okay? And what I mean by this is the following. Let me show you in this video, in this picture. Let's focus on this. This represents the blockchain, okay? So I told you that a hash is a summary of digital information, and we use a hash for transactions, for a block, and whenever we are trying to mine and extend the block of chain through mining with proof of work, whenever we are doing so, the identity of this block, of this new block, is going to be based on the identity of the previous block, okay? Because the process of mining requires of making a double hash of the header of the block, which includes the hash of the previous block, which includes the identity, okay? So with hashing, we are able to cryptographically link all the links together, all right? And this is how a blockchain is created. This is the first concept that I want you to understand about cryptography. We know that Bitcoin is backed by cryptography, math, and that is super important for you to know, because whenever people ask you, okay, what is Bitcoin backed by? We know that fiat money, paper money, is printed out of air and it's not backed by anything anymore. All right, it's not backed by gold or anything. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is backed by cryptography, math, and there is a very well-known quote in the crypto space that is called "Don't trust, verify." You can verify absolutely everything that has happened in the blockchain before, okay? And the last thing that I want you to understand about what a hash is that to create a hash, you need a hash function and an algorithm. And the algorithm that we use the most in Bitcoin is the SHA-256 algorithm that you're going to hear many times when understanding Bitcoin and when people are trying to explain to you how Bitcoin functions, all right? Okay, let's continue reading. And as I said before, this is just a summary of many different things that we're going to study up next. The longest chain not only serves as proof of the sequence of the events witnessed, but proof that it came from the largest pool of CPU power. Okay, as long as the majority of the CPU power is controlled by nodes that are not cooperating to attack the network, they'll generate the longest chain and outpace attackers. So whenever you hear the longest chain wins in the Bitcoin's space, so to speak, whenever you hear someone saying the longest chain wins, it means that the chain is going to win that has the most amount of CPU power. And I'm going to explain to you why in a minute. As I said before, that has to do with the mining process and how miners win the competition that they are in, and they extend the block of chain. And also, these miners are economically incentivized to behave honestly and do not do any malicious type of activities and attack the system. That is super important. The network itself requires minimal structure. Messages are broadcast on a best effort basis, and nodes can leave and rejoin the network at will, accepting the longest proof of work chain as proof of what happened while they were gone. What this means is that this is an open source system. You and I, if we want, we can run a full node and join the system, okay, and contribute to the decentralization of the system. And if tomorrow we don't want to do it anymore and then come back a month later, we can do so as well, okay? And yeah, it's an open source system, and whenever you want to run a full node, you have to download the whole blockchain, and so that you know on your computer what has already happened in the past. As we said before, the system, all the nodes in the system, they follow certain consensus. Okay, this is one of the elements that I mentioned before, consensus mechanism. And what it means is that all the nodes that are part of the Bitcoin system, they follow certain rules, and they follow also rules regarding what has already happened in the blockchain before. Okay, so that way they can all cooperate and work perfectly, so to speak, together. Okay, and one of the things that we mentioned before is that whenever we have a block of chain here, whenever transactions are in a block that has just been mined, that information cannot be modified. And this is one of the most important features that the blockchain of Bitcoin has, that is immutable. And we're going to analyze and learn more about this immutability of Bitcoin in a minute as well. All right, moving forward, let's go to point number 1. So as we said, this is just an introduction, and now Satoshi starts to explain everything with more details. In the introduction, basically Satoshi is describing the problem that we have with centralization of power and with the need of an intermediary when it comes to transferring money. This, if you read it whenever you have a minute later, when you download the white paper, and I suggest that you do, read it and you will see that it's super easy to understand, and he's describing the problem that we have nowadays in the internet with the need of always depending on someone or a corporation or a service to do almost anything on the internet. And all those corporations are super centralized. And in this second paragraph that I have just highlighted for you, we can read the solution that he is proposing. What is needed is an electronic payment system based on cryptography, proof instead of trust. What we said before, right? Instead of trusting other humans or any other corporation or intermediary, with Bitcoin, we don't need to trust anyone because the system is based on math and cryptography, and everything, we can verify absolutely everything, allowing any two willing parties to transact directly with each other without the need for a trusted third party. Transactions that are computationally impractical to reverse would protect sellers from fraud. This is very important. Transactions in Bitcoin are one way. You cannot reverse a transaction in Bitcoin. Once you initiate a transaction, done. Your money has been transferred already. It just has to be confirmed in the system, okay? So the fact that we do it this way, we protect individuals from fraud, and routine scroll mechanism could easily be implemented to protect buyers. In this paper, we propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer distributed timestamp server to generate computational proof of the chronological order of the transactions. This is what we have been talking about before, right? He's proposing a system that would allow us to provide the possibility of someone doing the double spending, okay, making a transaction twice. That is not possible with Bitcoin. And he is proposing a system, a distributed system, peer-to-peer distributed system that would allow us to do that. And all the transactions that have been already recorded in the system before cannot be modified, okay? The system is secure as long as honest nodes collectively control more CPU power than any cooperating group of attackers. Okay, so the nodes need to be economically incentivized so that they can behave honestly, and they use their CPU power, their hashing power of the computers to move the system forward and not do any malicious activities. Okay? Okay, continuing with the white paper, the second point that Satoshi highlights here are transactions. Transactions are the DNA of the Bitcoin system. We know that in Bitcoin it's all about keeping the transactions flowing in the system in a decentralized way. We know also something that we mentioned before is that what matters most is the how we save the information, the transactions in the blockchain that makes the system decentralized and unique. A couple of features that the system of Bitcoin has is that it is the most decentralized, the most secure, immutable, transparent, an open system in the world. And that is very important to know. Achieving this level of decentralization, it took Bitcoin a while. No protocol goes from centralized to decentralized in a matter of days or months. And that is super important for you if you're just getting started in the blockchain space. If you are studying a certain project that is going to be based on a certain blockchain, please read the white paper and understand the technical aspects. If a project is aiming to, I don't know, for example, let's say achieve a certain area of society and put it on a blockchain, they need to tell you and communicate to you how they are going to achieve that decentralization, and they need to show you a technical roadmap to achieve it. That is very important to understand. Okay, so going back to transactions, we know that they are like the DNA of the system, and whenever I initiate a transaction, that information is propagated in the system. For example, if I want to send my mother 0.5 Bitcoin, that information is sent it in the system, and everyone knows that my transaction has to be confirmed. And whenever we say that Bitcoin is a chain of ownership, means that whenever I initiate a transaction, I am sending the right to spend those Bitcoin to the next person. Okay? And I own that person is going to own the right to spend those Bitcoin next. That is why we also say it is a chain of ownership of who has the right to spend those Bitcoin next. Okay, I'm trying to provide you as many value as I can of terms and certain phrases that we use the most in this space. Now, continuing with the paper. Before we read all of this, I'm going to explain to you something about transactions. And this is important. This is important because whenever you want to send Bitcoin and analyze how a transaction is confirmed, actually, whenever I initiate a transaction, as I said before, 0.5 Bitcoin that I want to send to my mom, many things happen. And you need to understand many concepts in order to see each step of the way until that transaction is confirmed, and that in a block, and that block is extended in a blockchain, and that information is validated by all the nodes on the network. All right? So all the transactions in Bitcoin have the following features, except one transaction. One transaction in Bitcoin is very special. Whenever a miner is creating a block, he is going to do so, and he's going to add a special transaction in the block that is called the Coinbase transaction. The Coinbase transaction is the first one that happens in a block, and it is like a paycheck that miners would get if they are able to win the competition of proof of work in the mining process. And they are going to get, at the moment, they are going to get two different incentives that they have. One is the fee of all the transactions that are in that specific block. And secondly, what it is called the block reward. The block reward is also the amount of Bitcoins that are created every time a block is mined, okay? And that amount is currently 6.25 Bitcoin, okay? So I don't want to explain to you the mining process yet, but I want you to understand there is one special transaction in Bitcoin that is created by the miners and that has certain features. All the other transactions have inputs and outputs, okay? All the other transactions, with no exception other than the Coinbase transaction, have inputs and outputs. Whenever I initiate a transaction, 0.5 Bitcoin, for example, as we said before, that information is propagated in the network and everyone knows that Carolina's transaction needs to be confirmed, okay? And whenever I want to send money to someone, there are certain rules that I need to follow, okay? So the first thing that I need to confirm, so to speak, is that I have my private key. As I said before, my private key is like my password to access my Bitcoin that are in the blockchain. Okay, so with that private key, I am going to access my Bitcoin and I'm going to sign the message, the transaction, with a digital signature. A digital signature is produced by me by signing the message, the transaction, with my private keys. We have already mentioned this before, okay? So first of all, I need to show that I have my private keys, otherwise I cannot send money. Secondly, I need to specify where each one of my inputs came from so that everyone knows. We know that in Bitcoin, everything, I can verify absolutely everything and everything is connected. So I need to specify where all these inputs came from. And also, in order to make a transaction, this is very basic, but it's also that that I need to prove is that I have more inputs than outputs, okay? So in order to spend money, I need to have more funds that I want to send. Super basic. All right. On the other hand, the person that is going to receive the Bitcoin needs to show to the world, to the system, his or her public key. A public key is like a bank account, so to speak, that the other person needs to show me, in this case, in order for me to send the funds, okay? Super basic, super basic. Whenever I initiate a transaction, until that transaction is confirmed, they are called UTXO, unspent output transactions. This is a terminology, this is a concept that you are going to continue hearing and listening, hearing in the blockchain space, in the crypto space, and I wanted to mention to you. Understanding how the UTXO work takes more time and is a little bit more technical, so we're not going to dive deeper into this, but I just wanted to let you know that they are called this way until a transaction is confirmed, okay? And following this example, what I want to highlight next is a couple of rules that are in Bitcoin whenever I want to send a transaction or initiate a transaction. Rule number 1, all inputs need to be spent in a transaction, and in a transaction, we can have more than one output. Let me say that again. Whenever I initiate a transaction, I want to send money to someone, all inputs have to be spent, and in a transaction, we can have more than one output. I'm going to explain to you why. So whenever we send money with our bank account, okay, let's say we have $10,000 in our bank account and I want to send my mom 1,000. So what we do and what we understand is that I take 1,000 from the 10,000 and I send it to my mom. Okay, in Bitcoin, it doesn't work like that. It works in a way that whenever I want to send certain amount of money to my mom, all the inputs are going to be spent, okay? And one output is going to go to my mom with the money that I'm sending her, and the second output is going to come back to me again, to a certain public key that I own. And this is made by the wallet, by your wallet where you have your private keys and your public key. Let me highlight here that your Bitcoin are not in your wallet. Your Bitcoin are in the blockchain. That is something that a lot of people can also confuse. Your Bitcoin are in the Bitcoin blockchain. Your wallet just provides you your private keys and your public key. Okay? That is very important to know.